So our next speaker is
Thank you.
Ivo. Thanks so much. Next speaker is Ivo. Ivo is also studying game studies at our center. I'm very happy that you are presenting today. So you have the stage.
Yeah, thank you very much. This really is exciting for me because, yeah, I've just entered the field of game studies. So let's just, which screen do you see? Do you see the slides?
Yeah, the correct screen.
The playerism slide.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. So I mean, this is a theme that kind of developed how I got into game studies. Now I studied architecture until quite recently, and during my studies, I have crowdfunded this board game called WorldControl, and it's called like the elite board game. And this is kind of I'm guessing you already get a feel of where this is going. And my original intention, as I told Natalie, I actually wanted to kind of say something about kind of like the evil in the evil magic in games, something like. So I very much appreciate the previous talk that really set the stage for me quite well, and but how we generally just also perceive it as maybe attractive. And but just I wanted to introduce this this game in a way because for me it had a very magical history, because I developed it, I crowdfunded it, I designed it, I published it, but I didn't invent it. And so it was invented in like really 30 years ago by a guy called Michael Lee Cregger in the United States. And when I was an exchange student there, I got to know the game along with the family. And here you see him back then when he invented the game. So the setting of the game, I guess it's quite he always started every game in the future. All governments have failed. There's only billionaires with corporate armies who now play for total world control. And I feel that so when I kind of felt that it was a sort of the generational piece of game art that I somehow discovered and really I wanted to carve. And because I think it's kind of significant, like now 30 years ago, it was kind of the end of the Cold War. It was the height of the nuclear arms race, and all of a sudden the Soviet Union would fall apart. The United States is now the world police. And everywhere we had global market reforms, and multinationals really, multinational corporations really just became dominant powers. And in especially my generation, then we had the big financial crisis of 2008, and I think it was 2015 or something when it was the Oxfam study that said kind of like 60 people were like had as much wealth as the other half of the planet. So I kind of like called up Michael and said, look, it's just a matter of time. Your game is becoming real. We're gonna be down to 6 players soon, and we can all enter the game. And that's kind of this short history. But when we think about when it's about WorldControl, what is it actually? We I go to start to go from history to her story, because it is a kind of a mashup, of course, of the 2 board game classics, which is a Monopoly and Risk. It has this pay or fight mechanism. And I guess most of you know this, but the original game was called the Landlord's Game. It was by a Quaker woman called Lizzie McGee. And she developed it to teach about structural inequality. Now, in the end, her idea got robbed. She took it all the way to the Supreme Court. She actually won, but the game of Monopoly became the most sold board game in history, with I think almost 300 million copies sold. And now there's something that that formed for me the basic question of also why I went into game studies, and that is to you. So I kind of always felt this was odd, that I get this concept, there's this magic circle, we have the real world outside, and inside is the play world. So I felt, why then would a game about real estate, about high rent, about housing prices, which is something that everybody's concerned with, actually most their lives, become the most popular game? And I thought that in many sense, this play world can also be perceived as the extra real world, and where we don't just create a magic by entering by fleeing reality, but going into like bringing our emotional excess from the real world into a platform where we can be in a position of power that is either like highly immoral or just reserved for the very few. And so in a way, yes. So when I found out about this game, I just kind of felt like, was it more the same? It was just like a higher sense of monopoly, but it really felt like it was kind of romantic sense by now that owning a house would be like the theme of inequality. So it needed an update. And what really fascinated me then about WorldControl is because everybody knows these classic, everybody knows Risk, and everybody knows Monopoly. These are very familiar setup, but we know it's kind of boring. It's just like rolling the dice and moving along. This is why, of course, in the geek community, it's rated among the worst board games ever, even though it's the most popular worldwide. Why? So I quickly just give you the overview, like the rule setup. It kind of just, I guess, took an old thing and polished it. So instead of like buying a street, you just own a single property, and you buy major cities across the world, and everything has a border. So you roll your people across the border. So the game builds up very fast. There is no like hours of playing until you own a street or like build houses. And also this mechanism is actually quite nice because the borders get higher the more expensive the properties get. So in the very first round, the board is already split up, and the like poorer like places are higher built up, and the richer ones lower. So it starts kind of equal, but the mechanics of the game, of course, progress it very fast from a shift from poor to rich. And the second thing is, I guess, the most important thing. This is the mashup of the Risk and Monopoly kind of theme, that you have this option. You don't just have to pay. You can also declare war and fight. And so this is always then what really just kind of just made the game interesting, because the fighting part, the competition is I guess what makes just every game exciting. But most importantly, it gave the player agency over just the pure control of chance, which was the third thing about WorldControl, is that it featured these control cards that you can gain and play instead of rolling dice. So it added a lot of well, not a lot, actually just a couple gaming features that gave the player more agency. It made it more immersive for players to interact and kind of change the course of the game, but still be in a very familiar setup that actually like your grandmother, your aunt knows. So I always felt like it had kind of a potential to bridge a gap of generations, and also of like geekish kind of needs to more like the family oriented needs, because that is actually the reason why back then it was not published, even though like I think like thousands of Opoly style games were published. But back in the 90s, especially board games in general, had to be very family oriented and as simple as possible. So that's this golden age of board games really just started, like, I guess, 10 years ago, which is I kind of fell into a big new emergence of board games when I crowdfunded it. But there was the kind of this third thing about it, that apart from this familiar theme that we connect with, I guess, in real life, and politics and daily news, and these updated game mechanics, is that it actually had this magic circle already built in physically in this rudimentary design, which is how when I went through these board game fairs, I always said, right, this is actually the only board game. The others are just cardboard games. So the idea that followed it was that really with crafting a more physical experience, that it adds so much to the immersion of the game, and which eventually turned out a bit of a problem with me also for the crowdfunding, because most people actually wanted the real deal and were willing to spend actually, I think, quite a surprising amount of money. But I had the difficulty then of actually crafting it, which turned out to be quite a long and painful process. But just this general setting of having this controlled dice rolling arena. Also, I mean, first of all, these are like practical issues that dice don't roll off the table. You have a very focused setting, and I always felt that this is one of the most important. This was always one of the most important features of the game, because it provided this like Casino Royale flair. Everybody like really quickly just changed into like these kind of villainish characters, and of really feeling around that it's playing for world power. And the theme that always followed me then, it was this the theme of the Jumanji, which when I thought like board game geek analytically wise, it must be the worst game of them all, right? It's really, if you make a review of it, it's just rolling the dice, getting to the end. Like it's a really kind of boring gaming mechanism, but it's somehow this archetype of magic in board games and generally in games, because it is such an immersive game that the game actually takes over reality. Like it becomes alive, and a very controlled and regulated small town civilized society gets overrun by this absolutely wild game sphere. So it's like the magic circle coming alive, and I always wanted to kind of like craft it in some way. And can you just give me a quick time update to know where I'm kind of at?
You have 10 minutes left, and then we have to skip the discussion if you speak 10 minutes. 5 minutes.
Okay, so it's 5 minutes. All right, just all right. This is what I wanted to know. Right. So I kind of this theme where, because I was a student of architecture at the time, I really wanted to like craft this kind of like design object, was from the architectural historical point. I was always fascinated on how so much of the Middle Ages, where we call the Dark Ages, was because Christianity kind of started to actually ban like theaters and everything, play and the magic circle. And which is which fascinated me architecturally is that really we find with the Globe Theatre around William Shakespeare in around 1600, the very first theater built in Europe in around 2 millennia, and afterwards really society kind of, when people started to invite a more general population again into a sort of magical circle, civilization boomed, and it kind of like really correlated. And because I always felt like that the bigger the magic circle kind of get, the more inclusive, the more people, the more societies let people into this magic circle, the higher developed societies are, right? Like the archetype was always like in like the ancient Hellenic societies, the theater play was such a big part of society. And the public forum, the public discussion, the exchange between everybody. And the interesting part is that like when the Romans then took it up to the really the next level and constructed these gigantic magic circles where we know like games became just as important as bread to kind of hold the society together. But really just before like the Roman Empire like fell apart, it was and Christianity started to take over with the dogmatic anti kind of play ideology as well. And we have this archetype of the Emperor Nero, who was just who really started to treat the whole life as a game, who wanted to build even more amphitheaters, more Colosseum, who wanted to be an actor himself. And he was actually widely popular among the regular class. And so he tried to just make everything as big. And the question was that too much? Because the game was when I crowdfunded it, was really when this happened. It got crowdfunded on the day that Trump got elected, and I really felt this was like this absolute archetype of Nero coming to our times, this Jack in a box jumping out of the magic circle in a way, or like let's not call it maybe the magic circle, like out of the game sphere. There's this game show host who's been his whole life like a playboy, building casinos, losing casinos, who just could not get enough of the games. And also his supporters, like they would be accepting an alternative reality, even though right, you kind of know that it's not real, but it's as if the whole life and society has to be like this game world the whole time. And so for me, this is the concept of what I then call playerism, a playerist society. If we develop into that, where we consider everything is play, and if the magic can actually get lost then, because if we design our whole societies as games, do they become highly competitive, and do we really want that for our society to be really just a game? And all right, the GIF is not playing, but anyways, the general theme of this WorldControl was then, do we start to like get a grip of reality? Do we see power and politics and real life as a game? And what consequences would that have for us? And I guess I can show you some other GIFs, so I'll wrap these things up. And there was just one connection that I did with WorldControl to the digital world, because the fake news era started to arise. Is that you can tweet your own fake news event cards, and we have a Twitter bot that then turns your fake news which you tweet into actual event cards that have the effect on the board game. And yes, so this whole concept was how to make a kind of like modern day Jumanji, where everything is and to kind of like make a perfect way of game that is like everything fits in its place. It gives you a ultimate elite experience, even though it's not a virtual reality. You yourself play this reality. And right, I mean, this was just, I tried to craft this this game, and I want to end like on I guess just a personal note, which it does not show the wrong graphic now. But anyways, the cover of the game, it features a poem of my father. He wanted to create like a universal song for peace, in which he just translated every word for peace, and tried to make for the chorus a universal word for peace. And he said, it's not a word, it's just a sound, and every sound, this sound is done by every mother on the whole planet to pacify her child, and it's just shh. And so on the cover, I portrayed like a not straight world with peace in all languages, to kind of symbolically try to reinstate the limit of the magic circle and the real life. Because I think, right, in the game world, everything is sort of allowed and possible, and we do want to have fun, but also better realities, and to get this, to find a balance between these. And I hope that with board games and just being together in, I guess, a group that is manageable and close and intimate, we can establish again more magical connections between people. So thank you very much. I hope I am I